welcome to tonight's work event. I hope you're well hydrated or have even brought your own bottle. Tonight is the final meeting of this cycle of the Finance, Assets and Performance Scrutiny Committee. In addition to the members of the committee with us this evening, we have a couple of officers in the room, plus our legal officer who is with us through the ether, and we are joined by cabinet members, the leader of the council and the portfolio holder for finance, who will be answering our scrutiny tonight. Item number 1 on the agenda is apologies for absence. I have received myself apologies from Councillor Grocott, who is stuck in the very bad traffic that's out there tonight. So I wish him well in getting where he needs to go, but he's not with us. He sent apologies. Are there any other apologies for absence? Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I put apologies in for Councillor Burt Proctor, and I will be substituting for him tonight.
Thank you very much. Yes, apologies received then from Councillor Proctor. Are there any other apologies for absence?
Yeah, Chair, there's apologies for Councillor Stubbs.
Thank you. Apologies for Councillor Stubbs. Any more for any more? No, I think that's everyone. Thank you for those who have made it tonight. Item number 2, declarations of interest. Does anybody have any interests to declare in relation to tonight's agenda? I can see no interests. I can see no people behaving interestingly. Item number 3 then, minutes of the previous meeting, starting at page 3 of the agenda. Does anybody have any corrections to ask for on those minutes?
Can I move that the minutes of last meeting are taken and passed, please? You
can indeed, Councillor Hutton. Thank you very much. We did ask, I think there were 2 items that people had requested information from Cabinet on, and very briefly, we can give that information that was requested at the last meeting. Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everybody. 2 items which were for a cabinet update. One was relating to CCTV, the other one was relating to waiting times on the phone. On the CCTV one, obviously, a request that the locations be taken into consideration for CCTV for tackling antisocial behaviour. There are a lot of problems across many areas of the borough on that. I mean, this administration has always taken the position that we wanted to work with partners to get CCTV in place, and we did with the Newton Town Centre bid, worked with them and had a funding arrangement with them where they put the CCTV in and we funded the monitoring. When it comes to Kidsgrove, we've obviously made an offer to Kidsgrove Town Council about a funding arrangement there where they could put CCTV in. We'd ensure that it was monitored. We haven't heard anything back of any concrete moves on that at the moment. Also, we've talked to parishes in the past. Madeley comes to mind on issues of CCTV. So we're open to the opportunity to expand our CCTV system. But of course, through the council budget, it isn't a statutory service that we should provide. The council budget isn't infinite neither, but we're looking to work in partnership. And then we've achieved quite a lot with the town centre CCTV. We show how we can do that. I think it was something where it was a £45,000 cut to the budget that we inherited in 2017. And we managed to avoid that by obviously renewing thank you. With the bid, and I think that's the way forward on CCTV. Second one about the one front door and the changes there relating to the calls not answered. I don't know what that means when the lights are flashing, Chair, but should I carry on while people can hear me? Okay. Yeah, we're okay. Perhaps we're okay now. I will carry on with my report back and relating to the customers' services and the answering. Obviously, the aim is to resolve more customer inquiries at the first point of contact rather than handing them off to a separate team. So the aim is to encourage people to access services online rather than by telephone. And it is that's the ethos of the council where we want to move, but we don't want to turn off the traditional methods where people can come into this building or they can come onto the phone. And for the current week, the average waiting times on the phone for customer services is just over 2 minutes, which I think is well within the target we put forward. But there are longer waiting times and they have been experienced during November and December. And I think during that period, we've had a local plan consultation going on. We've had a renewal of the garden waste collections, which has generated more work than we would normally have at that time of year, particularly with the local plan consultation, and ensuring that people can be able to sign on and be able to sign on online and ask questions of the customer service team if things aren't working properly. And we did have some issues when we renewed the website around this time. So that led to some of the issues. But the major changes of the one front door have been in Revs and Bends. So for Revs and Bends, the average call time, waiting time was about 4.5 minutes, which is also well down on earlier periods. Our phone messages encourage people who are waiting to have the option to go online. And what we do see is 20% abandonment of calls. Now, that doesn't mean that people have just given up. It means that at an early stage, they may have seen the message that you can renew your garden waste online, or you can get another service online, and they will have gone that. So we're looking for a channel shift, and obviously our residents using more of the online services. But as I say, again, commitment to the phone service and commitment to face-to-face. And I think now we're through the changes of the one front door, we will see it settle down, and obviously those call times come within target. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg, for that update. Councillor Hutton has moved the minutes and we've had a little bit more information. Councillor Pickup, do you have anything you'd like to say?
I don't know whether this is the appropriate time to say it, but with regard to the online provision and the council tax, etc., I did speak to the chief executive about a particular issue I've got as a landlord. I went online, I couldn't find the form that I needed. There is no form online to actually report that a property is empty and is being put up for sale. All I could find was where's the change of tenants, etc. So I did email the council tax service, telling them that there was no form on there, giving them the details. I've had a bill which I've paid, but there's still no response to that fact that, there's quite a lot of landlords are actually considering, for various reasons, selling the portfolios, and there is no option on there for that currently.
I believe the chief executive has heard your comments. I'm not sure there's much more we can say to that. It's not on the agenda, but thank you very much for that contribution on behalf of the landlords of Newcastle. Make yourself popular there. Councillor Hutton's moved the minutes. I think we've had some additional information by way of a report back from the leader. Are we content to vote through the minutes of the last meeting? I can see nodding faces, so yes, we'll vote through that. Item number 4 then, the meat of the meeting is Revenue and Capital Budget and Strategies 2022-23. I'll ask Councillor Sweeney to introduce this item, and then we'll open it up for further debate. Councillor Sweeney.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. This is the last but one time now. I think it's obviously been a few times. The savings and funding strategy has been identified to address a £1.313 million gap. That's the gaps we've talked about the last couple of meetings for 21-22 via a vigorous efficiency board process, and have been agreed with managers as being both feasible and sustainable. What that means basically is the manager looked and said, yeah, we can do this. A major transformation programme, the One Council programme, commenced during 21-22, which involves an extensive redesign of organisational structures, process and technology, underpinned by changes in culture, leadership and governance. £195,000 of savings have already been achieved this year, and a further £600,000 of savings are included for 22-23, and the balance is the year after that. This has led to a below inflation council tax increase of 1.99%. per Band D property. This amounts to 10 pence a week or less for 90% of households within the borough. So Band D property, for example, that is 8 pence a week or £4.10p a year. The savings identified enable a continued contribution of £250,000 to the Borough Growth Fund. This will continue to enable investment in the council's priorities, including significant investment in boosting the sustainability of the environment within the borough and supporting developments of the town centre. The other 100,000 will go towards the One Council. During this year, we've received something in the region of £1.2 million from the government, from the taxpayer, to support our services and the money that we've lost due to COVID. There's still £360,000 we've invoiced. We talked about this at the last meeting. We're still waiting for that money to come in. It's all been invoiced to the government. We're just waiting for that. The other items on this is a suite of strategies. They are the flexible use of capital receipts, the capital strategy, the investment strategy, the treasury management strategy. They're all attached to this form, which you're welcome to look and ask any questions at. The capital strategy at the moment is looking to spend £66.652 million over the next 3 years, of which 33.588 million relates to this next year. This included schemes funded for major investment into the borough successfully secured via the Future High Streets Fund and the Town Deals Fund, for example. The 10-year capital strategy for 22 to 32 meets the requirements of statutory guidance issued by the government in January 2018. The council's capital investment is carried out within the statutory framework laid down by the Local Government Act. Delivering the capital programme for 22-23 will require prudential borrowing to be undertaken. The impact of borrowing is included in the MTFS. It's not a surprise for us. We know about it and it's put in the figures. I'm very happy to support this budget. I think it's an excellent budget. It's done in very trying circumstances. I think the officers have done a tremendous job, epitomised by the audit result, which I believe was as good as this council has ever had, even during the middle of COVID. So no, I'm happy to support this and happy to present it. Thank you, Councillor Holland.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sweeney, for introducing the item as portfolio holder. Obviously, this is the budget, plus its assorted suite of strategies as well. I've got Councillor Sweeney here to answer questions. We've also got officers and the leader of the council who may wish to chip in, but we'll open it up to the committee for questions. Councillor Hutton.
Thank you very much, Chair. I spent about an hour and a half this afternoon reading these various strategies, and I would like to congratulate the Head of Finance and and Craig, who's sitting behind me, I believe, for a brilliant suite of strategies. They all made sense, and congratulations on setting a balanced budget. I'm quite impressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that comment, Councillor Hutton. I don't know if anybody wants to respond to that or bask in the warm glow of Councillor Hutton's approbation. That's a thank you, I think, from our officers. I'm looking at the entirety of the opposition is represented in the person of Councillor Pickup. Would you like to speak now, or should we go for other councillors first?
I will, although whether I will get anywhere while I'm on my own is debatable. I've got a few questions again around the leisure centre side of things, which I did raise last time. So you make a statement that there are no redundancies in this budget, but we're saving £14,000 by going for a digital booking system. Presumably that £14,000 will relate to these hours, potentially. In regards to the life-saving equipment that we're talking about replacing in the pool, the electronic life-saving, what implications for that for our insurance? Has that been referred to them? Are they happy with that? What do our risk people think about it? Thirdly, are there any savings at all from working from home initiative? Is that going to carry on into the new year? We're going to have flexible working, and because if people are not coming in, you're not going to have to heat the building or potentially use it. What savings in fact within? I can't see any. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pickup, for those three questions. Your microphone did start to fail, but I think we in the room heard all of that. And a welcome also to Councillor Kieran, who's joined us. Check your microphone at some point, I think.
It's working, Chair. Apologies, I was stuck in the traffic.
Excellent. Yes, no, a few people have suffered for that reason tonight. So you've asked three questions, Councillor Pickup. I'll ask the leader and the portfolio holder first if they'd like to respond, and then they might perhaps throw it over for more detail to the officers. Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I mean, the insurance question I'll pass to the officers, but on the one council and the philosophy behind that, I think what it is obviously through those hours saved that they are, going to do other works within the council. And when it comes to taking staff out of the organisation, we're aiming towards those that are near the retirement age or or leaving of their own accord through natural wastage. I think what we don't want to lose is some of those staff that are of working for the council and are at the peak of their abilities, and that's not what the One Council thing is all about, because what we've got for them is training for new roles, for example, and to further their careers so they can move within the organisation onto better jobs and onto better pay. So it's not about losing positions in that respect. It's about using our resources better and shifting those resources. And one of those main resources is our staff. And again, that's what it's all about, isn't it? And then on the insurance one, and the third one was, sorry.
Are there any savings from working from home?
That's right. Yeah, the flexible working. I couldn't read my writing on the flexible working. Yes, I mean it's been a step change, hasn't it, over the last 18 months, almost 2 years, really. And we have adapted very well to working from home. I think working from home still has a part to play. And I think for many years, this council and every council saying we must get more people to work from home for those reasons which you said. But also I think on the flip side of it as well, there is also a need for people to come into the offices and for that integration and for that working together, because I think this building is a testament to how you can have people working without barriers between them and partitions to get better work out of people and better results for residents. So I think when we look at this, we'll look at it in the round, and I think use home working where it can be used to add efficiency and advantage, but also still bringing people into the office when it's safe to do so.
Thank you very much, Councillor Tagg. Did you briefly, before we ask our officer to
come back on that 14,000? I know it's small in the scheme of things, but does that actually represent a saving then? If you're moving somebody into another role, you're not actually saving that salary, are you?
I think taken on the whole and the whole One Council approach, it does, because obviously, as I've said, what we're doing is we're not treating a resource as just the resource in J2 or just the resource in the one front door. What is this? Taking a look at the whole approach is taking a look at where it can be saved across the board. So yes, it is a saving, and it will be saved by the organisation through more efficient working and use of our staff in different ways.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Would our officers like to add anything to that?
Yeah, if my microphone's working, yes, it is. Yes, totally agree with that. Obviously, because it is a saving across the authority, and there are people that are leaving through Mars, then it is a saving, class as a savings, should I say. It is just a realignment of staff and roles in their positions. In respect of your question regarding life-saving equipment and the insurance side of things and the risk, yes, that will be discussed with our insurers, and it will go on our Grace risk management system as well, obviously. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Did you have any further questions at this time? Feel free to chip in if we move on to something that you did want to ask a question about. I think I saw Councillor Waring. No, he's shaking his head. He didn't want to say anything. Do you wish to say anything in praise of the budget, Councillor Waring?
Only briefly. I think it's a fabulous budget. I think the officers have done a wonderful job in achieving it. So that was all. I hadn't got any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waring. Were there other councillors who wanted to speak to any of the items? Councillor Fear.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. No, I broadly share the enthusiasm. It's just come back again. It's going to be a bit of a roller coaster night tonight with these microphones, isn't it? But no, I congratulate officers and the hard work that's been put in there, and I'm particularly pleased to see this is an under-inflation increase at a time when I think we know with things like energy bills going up that's going to be very important for the poorer members of the borough. So I think that's very much to be commended. Looking at some of the gaps in Appendix 2, I'll sound a little bit like a broken record at this juncture. I do notice that the IT maintenance for software, etc., is quite a high line there. Again, I've this in the past, and there may well be good reasons for this not being the case, but I know down south some councils have explored the use of open source software for word processing, things like this. Business licenses do cost a lot of money. It seems to me that would be a good hit of making a saving without having any negative costs at all, if we're able to do so.
I can see Councillor Hutton would like to come in, but we'll ask the leader to respond to Councillor Fear's question first of all.
Thank you, Councillor Fear. Yeah, it's an interesting question, and one on the face of it you think we could adopt, and we can for some of these, go license free and use open software. And actually, when we had our efficiency board process, which was the building blocks of this budget over the summer, we did look at that in a number of ways, and I've actually adopted some of that. But I think on some of the software, it's specialist software, it's legal requirement software. And unfortunately, the government has signed up to people like Microsoft and all these others that are there to make their packet out of licenses and costs of software. So I think what we've asked officers to do is where we can use open source or different software that's cheaper. But again, we do have and it's even stronger since the pandemic, because we've seen all the billionaires that own Microsoft and all of them have suddenly doubled their wealth. It's because more and more people are now, and organizations are now in throat to them. Do I say Teams? Do I say Zoom? Do I say all the others? All of those are owned by these companies, which have got a stranglehold on the market. But we have committed to do where we can to reduce those costs. I know Councillor Fear has mentioned it a number of times.
Thank you. If you're using open source software as a company or a public organisation, you do have to pay. It's not free. It's not free.
Thank you. Councillor Kieran.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Fear asked a version of the question, one of the questions I was going to ask, so I'm left with two questions. We are in a period of inflation, levels of inflation that we've not seen apparently for a number of years. And I think as many people in this room realise that inflation isn't uniform. There are certain sectors of the economy that experience higher rates of inflation. My understanding is from conversations with friends that work in the business is that some of the areas that are facing significantly higher inflationary pressures are things like IT costs, IT equipment replacement costs, etc., and also plant and machinery costs, experiencing higher levels of inflation. How confident are you that the budget for the forthcoming financial year has enough contingency to deal with the prospect that some of the must purchase items are actually appropriately costed in? That's my first question. I mean, Chair, do you want to address that question? Then I'll ask my second question.
Absolutely. So we'll go for that one first then on the building in of costs under inflationary pressure for IT. I'll ask Councillor Sweeney first off, but if you'd like to delegate anything to officers, that'd be fine.
Yeah, it's very kind of you, Chair. I'd love to delegate that, please.
So with the IT costs to start, then there's been a lot of work that's been done over the last 6 to 12 months actually with the shift of IT. Obviously overviewing the licensing costs, cyber security, moving to cloud. So there's been a huge piece of work that we've been carrying out across the authority, and we are very confident that we have captured all those inflationary elements. We tend to try and fix ourselves in for a period of time, so we've got that covered in the MTFS. Vehicle maintenance and costs and repairs, that's another area that we're seeing that the prices are going up. Obviously parts, they have increased, and we've built in a bit extra for those costs over this coming period of time. We're sort of seeing the cost of those increase by 4 or 5% as opposed to what we previously built in before. Energy costs, obviously, which is the big one at the moment. So we're keeping a very close eye on this at the moment. Our procurement officer is continually monitoring the market for this. We are in a contract with that for the energy costs at the moment, so we are comfortable, we are secure, but obviously not taking the finger off the pulse and making sure that as things change over the next few months that we are monitoring that very, very closely. So I'm confident that the figures that we have and the increases that we have in the budget are accurate at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you for that. If I can ask my second question, if that's okay.
I was going to say if Councillor Tagg would like to add to that, and then if anybody else had anything to discuss in terms of that specifically, so bottom it out.
Just very quickly, Chair, on the back of what Sarah said, I think it affects also our capital programme, doesn't it, as well, really, because obviously when we do things, it costs more because we're buying services in. I think, Kidsgrove Sports Centre is a good issue on that. But thankfully, we're tied in with the contract, as we say on that, to ensure we don't don't incur any more costs. And it's up to the contractor to ensure they keep within the costs. And I can say, we had a meeting earlier relating to Kids Grove Sports Centre to do with the Town Deal Board. Councillor Burnett was there as well. It was very pleasing, wasn't it, Jill, that, it is staying on budget and we're getting the facility we want there. And because we really signed up to that quite early before inflation kicked in. So we're, the contractor has to deliver. So on that one, if we look at future projects, which we will be doing when we're looking at the future High Streets Fund and the Town Deal, that is where we're going to get hit with inflation, isn't it? And I think we've got to make sure we get real value for money for that money we've had from the government.
Leader, were there any other comments on that specific issue, or we'll move on to the next question from Councillor Kieran. Councillor Kieran.
Thank you, Chair. Just looking at the MTFS, in particular, looking at the table in 2.15. I am pleased to see that there is a narrative for 22-23 around covering all of the anticipated gaps. I'm actually looking at 23-24, and it appears that there is a projected remaining gap of 628,000. And the two areas left, if I understand the narrative correctly, the two areas left from which potentially that gap can be filled, good housekeeping and the health and social care levy. Now for 22-23, it looks as if they will collectively deliver 273,000, but for 23-24, the expectation is they will deliver 628,000. Maths isn't my strong point, but that looks to me like that depends on roughly the doubling of the income from the health and social care levy and almost the trebling of good housekeeping savings. And the thing about good housekeeping savings is they get more and more difficult to find year on year. So how confident are you that those savings for that year will be delivered? And is there anything further that could be squeezed out of the 22-23 budget to maybe help to cover that projected shortfall? Because that looks to me like a slightly more worrying. Delivering that from good housekeeping and from the health and social care levy looks like a bit of a stretch.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Kieran. Councillor Kieran will know, as many do, that closing budget gaps in future years is a feature of budget setting processes like this one, and I'm not sure that this is a challenge that we haven't faced successfully year, because of course this authority has set a balanced budget every year. But I'll ask if Councillor Sweeney to respond.
I'll respond to a certain extent. I mean, you're asking about a gap in 2 years' time. Like Councillor Hollander says, there's a gap. I mean, I got elected to this council in 2006, and there's been a gap to be filled every year since 2006, and we've successfully filled it. And I see no particular reason why we shouldn't fill this in 2 years' time. It's 628,000. Last year it was 1.313 million. So it's a lot less. And no, I'm very confident. But I'll pass over to Sarah. Have you got any comments on this, Sarah?
Thank you. Yeah, if I can just sort of say on that table, the detailed lines on that table aren't all of the sort of areas that we would look at for balancing the budget in future years. It's just that they are the categories at the moment that we have, we have balanced the next year's budget on, should I say, and then we have figures in for the previous years. So we wouldn't certainly be looking to balance the 23-24 budget by good housekeeping and just the health and social care levy. We'll be looking at the commercial strategy. Obviously, things are evolving so quickly at the moment with COVID. Income particularly is going to be a big focus for us again in that particular year. So there's going to be other income streams that we need to actually look at. Good housekeeping, obviously we always have to review that, but like you say, those sorts of areas are getting fewer and far between for us to actually access that. But that isn't an exhaustive list, and there will be areas added to that table.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Kieran, did you need further to make, or do you back on anything that you've heard?
No, that's fine, Chair. Thank you. Thank you for the responses.
Just on a technical matter, isn't the health and social levy an in and out item? Yeah, I thought it was. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are having some technical difficulties. I hope that the live stream for all of the many people who are undoubtedly watching it is working and that we're broadcasting accurately, but everyone in the room can hear what's going on. So content for us to keep going. Yes. For the purposes of the broadcast and the recording, though, we try and get the microphones to keep running. So while I've got mine working, I should say thank you very much for those questions. If there are no further questions on this, we'll move forward. As it says in the report, in addition to the scrutiny undertaken by this committee and its members, there has been a budget consultation for the general public, and that concluded and will be reported back to Cabinet on the 2nd of February, I believe. So everybody in the borough has had the opportunity to have their crack at this as well. And I'm sure that both officers and portfolio holders will be very happy to have further discussions if people wanted to raise those before we head into our budget setting council. I look forward with relish to whatever alternative budget the opposition can come forward with, or alternatively, I'd be delighted if they would, as I anticipate doing, vote for the budget. I think there's a lot of work that's gone into this. I think we all recognise the challenges that local government is facing, and this authority in particular. And I hope that we can, once again, as an authority, set a budget that we can be proud of in terms of delivering for our residents, and also an under-inflation, a less than inflation rise in council tax that for most households will be less than 10 pence a week. So thank you very much for the effort that's gone into scrutinising all of those things under item number 4. We'll move on then to item number 5. There is a confidential appendix at item 10 that relates to the scale of fees and charges. So at the very back of your agendas, there are a couple of pages of commercial sensitive fees and charges. If we could avoid referring to those during the discussion on item 5, that would be appreciated. If anybody would like to discuss them, we can always move the exclusion resolution and shut down the broadcast in order to do that. But we'll move on then to item 5, scale of fees and charges. Councillor Sweeney, would you like to introduce?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. The fees and charges report take effect from the 1st of April 2022 until the 31st of March 23. Fees and charges set in accordance with the charging policy, which amongst other factors takes into account the cost of providing services, benchmarking with other councils, and has a desire to affect users' behaviour. A 3% increase in fees and charges has been assumed in the medium-term financial strategy. This excludes a number of services, including car parking, for which fees again set to be frozen. Now, if I point that out to you, that's 3% on average. So car parking is not gone up at all. I might point out, I think inflation is running at something like 5.2%. So a 3% rise on our fees and charges in average is somewhat less than inflation. And although nobody wants to pay any more money than they possibly can, I think this is a very, very reasonable compromise. We're desperate to keep the parking charges as low as we can to encourage our town centre growth. And this is what we're achieving. And I thank you for that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I was a bit astonished at the cheapness of allotments. Surely allotment owners, and I know some very wealthy ones, could pay a little bit more than 50p a square metre.
Just get anyone.
I could say so for me, Chairman. I'm an allotment holder. I feel Councillor Hutton knows, and I think I pay £80 a year, which I think is exceptional value for money. But it's to Silverdale Parish Council as opposed to the Borough Council. No, but remember, we're just increasing by roundest figure of 3%. So increasing by more would be against our principles. So no, I think I'd support that. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to comment on it, really. I think that the approach that the finance team made in relation to the freezes and in some cases reductions is very sensible, particularly taking into account the economic circumstances we face at the moment. So I think they've done an excellent job of it. Thank you.
just for the future, would it be possible to look at a percentage increase maybe over the last 5 years or something like that? If we're saying 3% this year, but we 3% for the last 5 years, and that's potentially quite a big hike to where we were a few years. Just for information purposes, I think. Just as an extra, that's all.
We're setting
I'm not 100% sure. I can't understand. It's 3% this year, 2%. So what you're saying was 3% for how many years or something? Or?
When we talk about rises in council tax,
yes,
and we say 1.99%, 0.99% this year, but if we look at what it was maybe 10 years ago, it could be a substantial amount of money, couldn't it?
the compound interest,
Yeah,
as it were.
yeah. So I just think we should perhaps show the movement over a period of time, whether that be 5 years or 3 years, 10 years, I don't know. Councillor Hutton?
That's not a bad idea, but it should be in a separate table. But you will also have to have a comparable index. The economists use the Big Mac index. So you could have the cost of other items and how they've gone up, or salaries and things like that. Otherwise, it's totally meaningless. Absolutely, totally meaningless. So you would have to have a comparator and see how that's risen to compare things against. Thank you.
Interesting idea, and it'd be good to see how it affects the car parking, because of I think we're in a better position than we were all those years ago because of the changes we've made to car parking with the £1 after one, etc. That is a cut in car parking across the board on our town centre car parks during that period. I think since 2017, and particularly since 2018 in the election, we've taken an approach where car parking has been frozen, or in this case, as I've said, reduced, doing the free parking at Christmas and etc. So I think we've got a very good story to tell on parking over a 5-year period.
Go first.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Let's see if this thing works this time. And I'll just speak, and hopefully the thing will work one level or another. I that is your
Thanks, Chair. It isn't actually relevant what's happened in the individual years. We could just look at something, say 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and then compare that with inflation and just have the two things and see what the overall increase or decrease has been over a period of time, because it doesn't make any difference whether it's gone up so much each year. It's just simply the trend over a longer period of time. And then if we wanted to, we could maybe comment on those things, but it needs to be kept simple, because otherwise it just becomes meaningless. We're going to have a whole row of figures, 30 pages long, and we'll be looking for odd details which won't really make any sense to anybody, because all we're looking for really is a trend to see whether we're improving the value for money that we're offering to the fee payers for the various different charges, or whether we're actually representing real life increases in the costs. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. I think maybe this is partly for the benefit of any members of the public that are watching this, just to clarify. Would I be right in thinking that election-related fees and charges, the costs are actually set nationally? This isn't within the purview of the council to increase or decrease those costs. They're listed as freezes across the board. But is it right to say that that is essentially a reflection of the fact that these are set nationally? Yes. Is it worth making that clear in the documentation that this isn't a freeze decided on by this council? This is simply we are required to charge a fee that's set nationally, because otherwise it could create a situation in which residents might ask why they are essentially subsidising the activities of those pesky politicians who could probably afford to pay these fees without a freeze.
Yours was working no better, but perhaps if people can hear me on this one. Item number 6 is the work programme. The work programme appears at page 135, I think, of our report pack. And if we go forward quite a few pages, we can see where we are at this present time on page 141. So you can see the items that we've discussed here tonight. And then 24th of March, is that accurate? We got a meeting on the 24th of March? Yes, oh, in that case, 24th of March. At the moment on our agenda, we've got the commercial strategy update, the Q3 smiley face report, and then a regular update from Cabinet if any information needs to come back to us from Cabinet, and then the KPIs. And if you look over on page 142, an update on the asset management strategy. I think we've asked for a regular update on that, so that will be the latest regular update. And then procurement once again. So that's what we've got. I think that's lots to be getting on with. I think that we'll be very busy in March as well. Does anybody have any comments on the work programme, or are we content to let that roll forward? Excellent, it will do so. Item number 7 is public question time. I've received no notice of questions from the public. If others in the room haven't either, I'm going to take that as there are no public questions. Item number 8 is urgent business. I've received no notice of urgent business. I'll ask our officers if there is any urgent business to transact. No, there is no urgent business to transact. Item number 9, the disclosure of exempt information. Would anybody, I'll ask now, like to discuss anything on those 2 pages of confidential information? In that case, item 9 is not moved. Item number 10 is not moved, and we'll see you all in March. Thank you very much for your time this evening. Thank you.